In the past few years, Atlanta has been known as one of the main epicenters of hip-hop, spawning some of the hottest rappers in the game right now, like Future and Lil Baby. But it wasn't always like this. In this video, we're gonna go back to the beginning when it was considered impossible to start a rap career out of Atlanta. Let's get into it. The quote-unquote first rapper to come out of Atlanta is a hotly debated topic and is really unknown, but it seems like the internet has come to a consensus that it's a rapper by the name of Mojo, who began to gain a lot of popularity in the city with his hit single Batman Let Mojo Handle It. Now this was back in 1982, where the majority of rap was coming out of New York or the West Coast, and hip-hop influence in Atlanta was extremely small, so having a rapper pop up in the city was really unheard of. Needless to say that things would greatly change in the following years. Anyway, his song got incredibly popular due to the upbeat party tune at a time where high crime rates and racial discrimination were at an all-time high. In fact, an infamous serial killer named Wayne Williams had recently been arrested months earlier after pretending to be a talent scout for young kids trying to become musicians and then murdering them. Needless to say, an escape from all the negativity was heavily needed, and Mojo's record filled that spot. In fact, it got so popular that it became the first rap record from Atlanta to ever play on the radio. Mojo continued playing shows across multiple schools and universities in the coming years, and while performing at Morris Brown College, a young beatmaker named Peter Jones from New York was in the audience and became inspired to begin a rap career of his own. Although if you're from Atlanta, you may know him as the one and only MC Shy D. With hits like Gotta Be Tough and Shake It, he was the face of club music in the mid to late 80s, along with another rapper named Raheem the Dream. At the time, Raheem had a DJ called DJ Toomp, who you might not recognize by name, but you probably heard him at some point, as he'd go on to produce for Kanye West and another huge rapper out of Atlanta, T.I., who I'll discuss later in the video. Raheem and Shy D were big hits locally, but nationally, Atlanta hip-hop was still being shadowed by New York, but that had soon changed in the late 80s. One of the first big groups to begin making noise around this time was Arrested Development, formed by rapper Todd Thomas aka Speech, and his turntablist Timothy Barnwell aka Headliner. According to Speech, Atlanta was in a state of arrested development due to a growing crack cocaine epidemic sweeping the nation, and he wanted to make music that would move people forward. The group released their debut album 3 years, 5 months, and 2 days in the life of in 1992, and it became a hit, scoring the group 2 Grammys as well as a spot on MTV Unplugged the following year. Other groups and artists also began making names for themselves around this time, like Kilo Ali, Criss Cross with their hit Jump, and of course the classic hit Whoomp There It Is by Tag Team. The success of Criss Cross in particular turned out to be an important part of Atlanta's history. Back before they blew up with Jump, they were originally noticed by a man named Jermaine Dupri, a young rapper and record producer out of North Carolina who had worked with the likes of Run DMC and Grandmaster Flash. The story goes that he was in Atlanta where he saw 2 kids in a mall getting a ton of attention from people, and when he asked them what they did to become so successful, all they said was that they were just cool. It was then that Jermaine knew that he could be sitting on a gold mine, so he pushed the 2 kids to form a hip-hop duo called Criss Cross. Hey guys, just wanted to let you know I just launched my official Patreon. The link for it will be in the description. If you go over there, you can get exclusive perks like uncensored videos, as well as getting your name listed at the end of the video. If you're interested in that, again, the link is going to be in the description, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. The success of Criss Cross allowed Jermaine to form his own record label under Sony Records, which will be known as the legendary So So Def Recordings. Keep this label in mind, because it will be brought up a lot later in the video. This wasn't the only Atlanta label finding prominence at the time. In the late 80s, 2 men by the name of Antonio L.A. Reid and Kenneth Babyface Edmonds were a very established songwriting and production team in Los Angeles, working with rappers like Boyz II Men, Bobby Brown, and Whitney Houston. After becoming so successful in production, as well as a successful music career with their band The Deal in the early 80s, the 2 turned their sights to building a record label. They moved to Atlanta, and in 1989 they formed LaFace Records in a joint venture with Arista Records out of New York. So So Def and LaFace were the main 2 Atlanta record labels signing up and coming artists from the area. Although Atlanta was finding some success, it still wasn't being taken seriously in the hip-hop scene, constantly being overshadowed on the East Coast by New York, and constantly being compared to Miami bass music popularized by artists like the 2 Live Crew and MC Shy D. What Atlanta really needed was its own unique sound, and that's what it was about to get. In 1992, a producing group by the name of Organized Noise was founded by Rico Wade, Ray Murray, and Patrick Leroy aka Sleepy Brown. The group would get together in Wade's mother's basement, nicknamed The Dungeon, and work on music for days straight, trying to make a name for themselves in the industry. They wanted to have a hand in creating a rap style that was signature to Atlanta, so that's what they did. They began working with and forming various groups which they nicknamed the Dungeon Family. One of their first groups included 2 rappers by the name of Andre Benjamin and Antoine Patton, who you may know better as Andre 3000 and Big Boy, and they called themselves Outkast. The duo signed to LaFace Records and hopped on the remix of TLC's song What About Your Friends. This was a pretty big deal as TLC began to seriously blow up in the mainstream with their hit Waterfalls around this time. Along with the TLC feature, they also made a Christmas song called Players Ball in 1993, which was certified gold and began a huge buzz around the group. The success of Players Ball led to their first album being produced shortly after in 94 called Southern Playlist to Cadillac Music, which became a hit and helped to put the Atlanta rap sound on the map nationally. After their hit song and a successful album, the duo were nominated for the Best New Group at the 1995 Source Awards in New York City. Now you might be wondering why I'm mentioning this, and it's because after winning the award, the crowd began booing Outkast because they were really the only rappers there not from LA or New York, so they weren't being taken seriously. Well, that's when Andre took the microphone and said something that had changed the Atlanta hip-hop scene forever.
But it's like this though, I'm tired of folks, you know what I'm saying? Them closed-minded folks, you know what I'm saying? It's like we got a demo tape and don't nobody want to hear it, but it's like this, the South got something to say, that's all I got to say.
And the South did have something to say, with Atlanta artists continuing to get hits throughout the rest of the 90s. These artists include fellow Dungeon Family collective Parental Advisory, as well as Goody Mob, fronted by the now renowned rapper CeeLo Green, whose debut album Soul Food in 1995 became a southern hip-hop classic, being certified gold and including the first use of the term Dirty South. TLC also continued to make hits, with their songs No Scrubs in 1999 peaking at number 1 on Billboard and eventually being certified 5 times platinum. Other R&B acts were also finding success in the mid to late 90s, such as Xscape and Jagged Edge, both scoring platinum-selling albums, with Xscape's Off the Hook in 1995 and Jagged Edge's J.E. Heartbreak in 1999. Usher also began to gain popularity around this time after being discovered by LaFace Records, is signing to them shortly after. He would really start to find success with his sophomore album My Way, which included the singles Nice and Slow, You Make Me Wanna, and the title track My Way, which all peaked at number 2 or higher on Billboard. The success of this album and his singles allowed Usher the chance to go on tour with huge R&B artists at the time like Mary J. Blige and Janet Jackson, and he was finally beginning to become a household name. Needless to say, the South did have something to say, and Atlanta was finally finding its place within the hip-hop scene, but things would begin to get even crazier starting in the late 90s with the birth of a new genre of music. Throughout the late 90s, Outkast still dominated a lot of the southern rap scene with their albums ATLiens and Aquamini both going double platinum, but the real success would come in 2000 when they released their 4th album, Stankonia. All 3 singles from the albums were a hit, with the biggest being Miss Jackson, which hit number 1 on Billboard, became certified triple platinum, and earned the pair a Grammy for Best Rap Performance by a Duo or Group. The album itself peaked at number 2 on Billboard and has been certified 4 times platinum and won a Grammy for Best Rap Album. Many critics also consider this to be one of the best albums of all time. Needless to say, Outkast were on top of the world, but a new type of music began to form in the club scene of Atlanta that would bring a whole new sound to the 2000s. From the late 90s going into the 2000s, Atlanta experienced a period of growth, with the 1996 Olympics helping to put the city on the map and seeing a huge spike in employment and population group in these years. With the city's major success, the music began reflecting it, thus birthing the crunk genre. This was a type of club music which included heavy bass and chanting vocals. Hell, even crunk in itself is slang for getting drunk and excited. Now, we can't talk about crunk without first mentioning Lil Jon and the East Side Boys. Before his massive success, Lil Jon was DJing at a club in the early 90s where he was approached by Jermaine Dupri and recruited as the A&R representative at So So Def Records. Lil Jon is actually the one responsible for scouting early So So Def signees like Raheem the Dream, as well as Shawty Red, one of the pioneers of trap music who we'll talk about later. Anyway, Lil Jon wasn't content just having a job in the office behind the scenes, so in the mid-90s he joined with fellow rappers Big Sam and Lil Bo to form their rap group Lil Jon and the East Side Boys. Their sound was heavily influenced by groups like 3 6 Mafia out of Memphis, but Lil Jon and the East Side Boys were the first to use the term crunk on their debut single Who You With. Although Lil Jon and his group quickly became popular in the local Atlanta clubs, they wouldn't really start to find mainstream success until 2002, when their second single Get Low off of their sophomore album Kings of Crunk was released. This song blew up, peaking at number 2 on Billboard and being played at clubs not just in Atlanta, but in every city across the US. The song also featured the Yin Yang Twins, subsequently causing their career to blow up, with hits like Salt Shaker dominating the club scene. Lil Jon was a frequent collaborator with other Atlanta-based artists, with some of his most featured including Usher and Ludacris. Now, I haven't mentioned Ludacris yet in this video, but you really can't talk about Atlanta hip-hop without mentioning him. In the late 90s, Chris worked as a DJ in Atlanta's Hot 97.5 radio station before meeting producer Timbaland, who gave him a taste of the rap game after letting him feature on the song Fat Rabbit from his 1998 album Tim's Bio, Live from the Basement. After this, Chris became hooked to recording his first album and releasing it independently on his own record label Disturbing the Peace. He would end up selling selling 50,000 copies without a record deal, sparking the interest of Jermaine Dupri, who quickly signed him to So Def Records shortly after. From here, he would make multiple hit songs in the coming years, including Area Codes featuring Nate Dogg, and possibly his most iconic song from this time, Move Bitch. Back to what I was saying though, Lil Jon, Ludacris, and Usher collaborated so much that people almost began considering them a rap group. Their biggest collaboration by far though was the song Yeah off of Usher's 2004 album Confessions. This is probably the biggest party song out of Atlanta in the 2000s, with almost 1 billion streams on Spotify today, and staying at number 1 on Billboard for 12 consecutive weeks. It also scored the 3 rappers a Grammy in 2005 for Best Rap/Song Collaboration. They weren't the only rappers out of Atlanta getting Grammys around this time though, with Outkast taking home 3 Grammys in 2004, including Album of the Year for their album Speakerboxx/The Love Below. Before I move on to the next section, there's also a few other names I want to list who are pretty prominent around this time. Bone Crusher released his iconic single Never Scared featuring Killer Mike and T.I. in 2003, which quickly became a classic. Them Franchise Boys, Lil Scrappy, Young Bloods, and Pastor Troy were also prominent rappers around this time who helped define the sound of the early 2000s hip-hop, not just in Atlanta, but in the US as a whole. Little did everyone know, however, that starting in the mid-2000s, a new style of music would begin to emerge out of Atlanta that overtook crunk. It would become the most popular form of rap music even to this day. Trap music. It's a term that everyone today is probably familiar with, but the term trap wasn't even used in music until 1995 on Goody Mob's record Thought Process. Now, if we're talking about the genre of trap music, there are 2 main people that we need to look at, T.I. and Gucci Mane. In this interview, T.I. states that he was the one who invented trap music.
I did found and present trap music, first. I did not alone get it where it is right now today. There were other people who made very significant contributions to it that took it places that I didn't.
Right. But then in this Instagram post, Gucci Mane claims that he was the one who invented it. Generally though, history points to T.I. as being the one to invent it, as his 2003 sophomore album was literally named Trap Music and came out 2 years before Gucci Mane even made his debut. So T.I. invented trap music. Actually no, he just gave it his name. In the early 2000s, a producer called Shawty Red was working with a rapper named Drama on his album Causing Drama. While working on one of the songs, Shawty felt like it needed something, so he added hi-hats on top of the Miami bass type music, thus inventing the sound we know today. The sound became so popular that Shawty brought it to another up-and-coming rapper named Lil J, who we now know as Jeezy. Shawty produced a few songs off of Jeezy's 2 debut albums, but the real success would come in 2005 with Jeezy's 3rd album and major label debut Let's Get It, Thug Motivation 101. The album peaked at number 2 on Billboard, and the second single from the project, Soul Survivor, peaked at number 4 on Billboard, and really helped to bring trap music into the mainstream. This was a very important time for trap music, as T.I. released his 3rd studio album, Urban Legend, back in November of 2004, which found mainstream success, debuting at number 7 on Billboard. Gucci Mane also started making waves around this time with his debut album Trap House, making a huge buzz in Atlanta in 2005, and including a feature from Jeezy on the song Icy. However, disputes over the rights of this song would lead to a long-standing beef between the 2 rappers that spawned multiple diss tracks, and sadly even the death of one of Jeezy's associates. If you want me to make a video discussing the beef in more detail, let me know in the comments and I'll give it its own dedicated video. Anyway, trap music in Atlanta would prosper heavily in the next few years, with T.I., Jeezy, and Gucci Mane all finding success in the mid to late 2000s, constantly topping the Billboard charts, and T.I. even winning 2 Grammys in 2007 for the songs What You Know and his feature on the song My Love by Justin Timberlake. Other artists from Atlanta were also gaining prominence around this time, including Killer Mike from the Dungeon Family, who would later go on to join Brooklyn rapper E1P to form the hip-hop duo Run the Jewels in 2010s, and rap group D4L, who broke out in 2005 with their hit Laffy Taffy. Gorilla Zoe from Jeezy's old group Boys in the Hood would also begin making waves in 2007 with his debut album Welcome to the Zoo, reaching number 18 on Billboard. OJ the Juice Man would also gain traction around this time. He had already gained notoriety in Atlanta after releasing dozens of mixtapes throughout the mid-2000s, and he and Gucci Mane both created record labels in 2007 to independently release their music. Finally, of course, we can't forget about Soulja Boy, the self-proclaimed inventor of FaceTime and first rapper to do virtually anything you can think of. In 2007, he released his breakout song Crank That, which absolutely took over the early internet and led to him becoming one of the first viral internet rappers. Although Soulja has continued staying in the spotlight since then, I think this was definitely peak Soulja Boy because he had everyone doing the Crank That dance at the time. Moving into 2010, two Atlanta rappers really defined this year, Waka Flocka Flame and B.O.B. Waka Flocka released his wildly popular Flockavelli album this year, which included the three huge singles Grove Street Party, Hard in the Pain, and No Hands featuring Roscoe Dash and Wale. B.O.B.'s album B.O.B. Presents the Adventures of Bobby Ray also took over the year, debuting at #1 on Billboard and featuring a star-studded cast of features, including T.I., who he was signed to at the time, Hayley Williams from Paramore, Rivers Cuomo from Weezer, Bruno Mars, and more. Needless to say, this album was destined to be a hit. In the next few years, many of the modern trap rappers that most people are familiar with today started emerging, and it all started with Future. He began as a member of the Dungeon family, being cousins with Rico Wade, and he grew up listening to Andre 3000 rapping all day, which inspired him to begin writing songs of his own. His first big break came in 2011 when he wrote the song Racks by YC, which he was a feature on. The song did pretty big numbers, reaching number 42 on Billboard, but most importantly, it introduced a new style of mumble trap music that still dominates the rap genre even to this day. It also helped to propel Future's career, being played in clubs everywhere, landing him a record deal with Epic Records the same year. Since then, he's become a legend in the game with his massive hit Mask Off in 2017, classic albums and mixtapes like Dirty Sprite 2 and Hendrix, and collaborations with some of the biggest artists in the game like Drake and fellow Atlanta rapper Young Thug, who also began making a buzz in the Atlanta scene around this time. Throughout 2010 and 2011, Thug dropped multiple mixtapes, which garnered enough buzz locally to capture the attention of Gucci Mane, who signed him to his label 1017 Brick Squad Records. Thug would continue on to have a legendary career working with artists such as Kanye West, Camila Cabello, and Childish Gambino, where he won a Grammy for contributions on Gambino's song This Is America. Unfortunately nowadays, Thug isn't looking so hot, currently facing RICO charges for his alleged YSL gang, which he claimed to only be a record label. If you want me to make a whole video on the Young Thug case, let me know and I'll go more in depth. Anyways, Rich Homie Quan, a friend of Thug, also gained some mainstream attention in 2012, with his mixtape Still Going In, and the deluxe version released a year later, Still Going In Reloaded. Thug and Quan would later come together in 2014 for the track Lifestyle, which got very popular even if you can't understand what Thug's saying in half the song. Fellow Atlanta rapper 2 Chainz released his debut album based on a true story in 2012, which caused his career to take off and included features from Drake and Kanye West. The rap group Migos began to find success in 2013 when their track Versace was remixed by Drake, and they'd go on to drop banger after banger throughout the mid-2010s with hits like Hannah Montana, Fight Night, and their wildly successful Culture album. Moving into present day, the SoundCloud rap era led to the success of multiple young rappers out of Atlanta, including Lil Yachty, Gunna, Playboi Carti, and 21 Savage specifically, whose lyrical ability has led him to become one of the biggest rappers out of Atlanta right now, working with some of the greats like Post Malone on the song Rockstar, and J. Cole on the song A Lot. Lil Baby has also cemented himself as a legend in the Atlanta trap scene after only debuting 5 years ago thanks to songs like Yes Indeed featuring Drake and his biggest song Drip Too Hard from his collaboration tape with Gunna, Drip Harder. Other stars like Donald Glover aka Childish Gambino have transcended music altogether, with Glover featuring in huge blockbuster films like The Lion King and Solo, a Star Wars story. Needless to say, the impact Atlanta has had not just on music but in the world in general in the past few years is undeniable, and I'm not sure where music would be if not for all the artists I've talked about in this video. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe, and leave future video ideas in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.